Tēnā koutou katoa, māku te karakia I tēnei pō. Matariki te tupua, matariki te kāhui whetū, matariki hunga nui, matariki āhunga nui, matariki manoko nui, e ara, matariki ki runga rā, whāno, haramai te toki, haumie, huie, tai, kie. Oh, kia ora koutou. Ko aroha tōku ingoa, e mahi ana au ki te papa. Tuia I runga, tuia I raro, tuia ngā kōrero o Matariki Herenga Waka. Tēnā koutou katoa. He mihi tēnei ki a koutou e hui nei mō te kaupapa o Matariki. He mihi nui ki ngā kai kōrero o tēnei pō mō tō koutou mātauranga ā-waka. E ngā kōrero tui e ngā kāka tarahai tēnā katoa. Manawatia a Matariki. Kia ora everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. I've just got some quick housekeeping before I pass it on to our kai kōrero. The wharepaku and family room are just round the corner to my right, your left. In the event of an emergency, please follow the directions of our lovely hosts in the green Te Papa t-shirts. And if you need to leave before the kōrero is finished, please do so quietly, the same way that you came in. There will be time for a couple of questions at the end of the kōrero. Just raise your hand, and our lovely facilitator will get our hosts to hand you a microphone. If you're looking for other events to acknowledge Matariki here at Te Papa, please visit our events page. We've got a special After Dark evening next Thursday, Tā Kura Kapahaka on the 4th and the 5th, Matariki Whānau Day on the public holiday. Now I would like to pass over to our facilitator, Tainui Stevens, one of Aotearoa's most respected Māori screen storytellers. As the facilitator of tonight's kōrero, Tainui brings warmth, insight, cultural knowledge, and capacity to guide meaningful kōrero. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe.
Tēnā koe aroha. Oie! Kai ana te tūru ki te hou atu ki te waka e tauri ai e. Tangaroa pēa e tāhiri mā te atu, whakaanginuku tū, whakaangirangi haere tāni runga. Hautoto, ko tū heke ana, ko rongo heke ana, ko te ngā hau o tū. Utaina taku kawa nei, hei kawe tua maunga. Au e kawiwini kawa wana ka rapa tatu ki te rangi, te he mauri ora. Tuatahi rā māku. Te miha tuai ki a rātu e hinga tuai te tirohanga o te kanohi ora. Kai tēnā moka, kai tēnā pito, tō tātou henua, tērā he whānau e tangitangi mai ana, mō te ana, mō te ho rātu hinga. Nō rea haere koutou e kore koutou e ware tia. Haere koutou ki te tūhono tango ngā wairua e kore nei ki te I tēnei au. Haere ki te pōnui, ki te pōroa, te pōmatiri rau te whaiwhai auriki o tia tuai. Haere koutou. Nā ko rātou ki a rātou, ko tātou ki a tātou, ngā mahu e tanga mai, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Ka mutu, no wai ke tēnei reo, e mea nei oku mātua, ko hoanga tau tia te pai maunga, ko kariri kore te moana, ko ahi para ka meha te marae. Hei uri tēnei nā pōroa, ko ngā iwi o te rarua, ko ngā hapu, ko ngā timoe tonga te roke kā, tēnei hau ko Tainui Stevens e mihi nui atuni ki a koutou, kei aku rangatira, tuākana, tuāhina, tēnā koutou, nau mai. Nau mai koutou, hau mai koutou ki roti I tēnei hore kōrero, e mihi nui atoni ki a koutou ki a koutou ngā waka kua pai nei. Me taku mihi ki ngā toko toru e noho atu nei ki tōku taha, tēnā koutou katoa. Ka mutu, te take o te pō nei, kei te moho o rātau, ko tēnei āhuatanga mo te ao o te whakatere waka. Ka tahi rā heo miharo ko tērā. Nā reira tēnei rā tā mātou mihi atu ai ki a koutou, a mātou, a te papatonga rewa. Tēnā koutou kua heire mai te hakarongo. Te hakarongo ki ngā hakaaro nui ka takataka mai ngā māngai o ngā takotoru nei. Me kore ake e riro mai ai e tahi māramatanga. Nā rere he herenga waka, he whiti whakaaro, he whiti kōru, e tō ia mai ai ko te māramatanga tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou katoa. Nā, ko rongo ki koutou i aroha me ngā hakaheiro te pō. Tērā he wā ka tai, tērā ka te tai ki te wā ka hia tuku pātai mai. Me heki tō ringa kia tai te rākau kōru ki a koe, e pai ana. Kia tukuna tēnei wāhi, hei wāhi Wānanga. Hei wāhi whakaputa i te whakaaro nui. Me ki pēnei au, kia hora te tēpu ki ngā kai, kia kumea te tēpu kia roa, kia o katoa mai tātou. He kunaka, he huraka, he kuraka huna, he kuraka whākina. Ka whākina tua i roti te pōnei, nō reira tēnā koutou katoa. Nā, tuatahi māku, i inoa ia e ne toko toru iau, mā rātu anō e ki ko wai rātou, me te whakauti a rātou e toru ngā pātai. Tuatahi, no he rātou. Tuarua, ko wai tō ingoa. Tuatoru, he haraia ko tō tino kaupapa i roti te wā. Mā noiho. Engari he taimaha, he hohonu. Nā rea kia timatua ki taku taha raiti, tēnā koe ko whakautua mai ua pātai e toru.
Mahi ana, kia koe tainui, kia kei te katoa. Jesus, forgot the first question already. Nō te tai hau eru au, tainui te waka, tainui te iwi, tainui te hapu, whaingaro moana, aote te whenua, kawhe tāngata. Ko te tino kaupapa. Fundamentally, a navigator is about being the light. And while we all can't be navigators, we can all try and be the light within our communities. So that's something I strive for all the time. So kia ora rā.
Tēnā koe hoa, Matariki, mārama tēnā koe.
Tēnā koutou, e ngā uri o ngā waka huri te motu. Ko mā tātua, ko tāki te me tēnei te mihi ake nei. Ko hine rapa tōku ingoa. My main goal every day is to be a cool raukura, so that my siblings, first and foremost, but our tamariki, huri te motu, feel like that they can be cool by being Māori. So that's where I'm at. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Tēnā tātou i uri tēnei no tauranga moana, mā tātua tāki tumu ngā waka. My thing is, the beauty of the waka sitting on the water, ne? Everybody can sail a waka, but has anybody been able to fix a waka to make it beautiful to sit on the water and do its thing? And that's my thing. I love seeing that. And koera taku kaupapa.
Tēnā koe tamahau. It reminds me of 1990, i Waitangi hoki au. I reira te hekenga mai o ngā waka, e hia rani ngā waka. No ngā ata i arakai au, and I wake up in the morning, e kitai ko ngā waka maha e kautere mai ana, i te pēwhairangi hi ātāhua. Me taku ki kia awa nora o hara mai te tahi āhuatanga. Heo hou, kei te haere mai hei atāua, hei te Māori. And I think for me in 1990 to see all those canoes at Waitangi, at the time I felt a new age was dawning. A new age was dawning. And part of what we're here to discuss tonight is a view of that age through navigation, through the teachings of our seafaring tupuna and the relevance that those teachings have with us today. So I've asked our guests to just kick off with a bit of a kōrero, a bit of a statement about things that are on their heart, and we'll take it away after that. Kia te pai? Kia ora rā. Eeny, meeny, miny, catch a tainui by the toe. There you go, bro.
Kia ora. So I guess just the opening statement is something special about Matariki is that when we look up in the night sky and we look at Matariki in particular, there's no other constellation like it. In the sky, you'll have your prominent stars that stand out alone, shining bright. You'll have stars that make these beautiful big patterns in the sky, like Te Matawa Maui. But then when you look at Matariki, those stars are actually not shining bright, but their beauty is in how they come together as a collective. And for me, when I look at them, I think about the importance of not necessarily having to stand it, but checking in on each other, being strong in a collective, being present for each other. And so for me, when I look at Matariki, it's not the bright navigation star that we would use out on the sea. We actually like to use the brighter ones that can shine through the clouds. But Matariki, you don't have to see it to know it's there. You feel it because it's such a dim star, but it has such a strength in being together and supportive of each other. So, kia ora.
Kia ora, bro. Tēnā koe, hine rapa.
To follow on from that, in terms of Matariki, I've never actually had to use Matariki in navigation particularly, but growing up in Kura kaupapa Māori and understanding the importance of Matariki was to more so understand myself. Matariki is a beautiful way to encompass everything that makes you, you. And to be able to have a time and space where you can really hone in on that so that you can be a better you, not even just for the next day, but having that whole future. Because tātou te iwi Māori, we're all about creating a better future for our uri by looking back. And not navigation, but because of Matariki, I was able to dream so that I could become a navigator. And I would set myself up every year for 10 years, well, actually before that, so that I could eventually come around and be the person who I am today and be proud to say that I achieved my dream and now where to from here. And that's where I'm at, and that's what Matariki will be doing for me now.
Kia ora, tēnā koe.
Everything that they just said. Yeah, pretty much everything that they pretty much said. For me, I at a young age, I learned about Matariki, but it wasn't as in depth as what I know now. And it was through learning navigation and waka that I was able to understand its true beauty and what we celebrate today. But yeah, pretty much what they just pretty much said.
Hine rapa, you talked about navigation and that awareness of waka as a way to, I guess you talked about making you, you. I'd like to ask all of you, with regard to the waka world, what was there about the waka world that you saw in it to make you, you? What was your, Manhira, what was your first connection with waka that gave you that realization? This is me.
So I grew up sailing yachts. My dad was a sailor, and I grew up at school. We were sailing. Went to yacht sailing school, and then at university, one of my lecturers, Hoturo Kerr, I was in his room and I found this book, and it was called The Hukalea. Had no picture on it, it was just a hukalea, and I opened it up, and to discover that there was a world of Pacific sailing that was far beyond anything I could have imagined in terms of how they sailed throughout the Pacific without the GPS, without the sextant, but simply by their relationship with the taiao. That is when it hit me to think, this is who I am, this is where I want to be. And it was just so amazing to read the stories of Nainoa Thompson when he was 18, because I was 18 at the time, and to think, oh, he's my age. But then to realize, oh, this book's 20 years old, but never mind. Yeah, it's crazy to think. So as 18, I used to have these black and white pictures of hukalea all plastered around my room. Just that was the dream to one day be on that waka.
Wow, real hukalea groupie. Yeah. Kampai, kia ora kia koe. Hine rapa, hea te kōrero mou, hea te wā, I puta mai ai a koe tēnei māramatanga mou anō.
I've spoken about this before, but I think it's when I had to identify what success meant to me. And in short, I lived in a world where everything about me was important to the people teaching me. And I was surrounded by it. They really celebrated and also just wanted tamariki to feel like their best selves every day. Then I went into university, not saying that it's a bad thing, and honestly, I love to challenge myself, so I stuck to it. But my whole self that made me bright was no longer there. I was a dim girl because I thought that success meant getting a degree. Not that it's not, it still is. However, at the same time, I met Jacko, our chief, who's here. He said, don't mention me. Well, here we are. Our two chiefs are here, Jacko and Alf, they're behind you all. And he pretty much showed me again who I was just by being himself and being excited about kids wanting to be a part of the world that he loves. And everything inside me ignited. I loved maths, I loved science, I loved kōrero tuku iho. I saw what Māori me tērā meant because we had longer days and shorter days, and I could calculate where I'm heading just based on where the sun is. Kōrero tuku iho about where I came from and being a part of the moana was already normal. And so I felt that connection again, not only to self, but to who and what made me who I am today. And I thought that's what success is to follow that and to pursue that and to live that and feel that every day, not having to put something on because I feel like this is success because I have a piece of paper that says I'm successful, but was for the internal belief, feeling inside me that means, yes, I am so cool today.
Yeah. You talk about teachers. I mean, you all have been mentored and you all have met amazing teachers. I'd like to tease a little bit further out about those people that you consider to be real teachers.
They're all my pakeke. I'm very fortunate to have a lot of mentors that were just our kaumātua and our kuia aunties and uncles that I didn't even know were lifeies. They were lifeies and they were raising me on our marae, but they were my uncle that taught me about humility. And even my tēnei were teachers to me. That was because that's how we were spoken to, was that everything around you can teach you. And I love to be a tauira. I enjoy that and I employ that. And that was something that navigation taught me. You're never going to reach this top, whatever top is. There's always something to learn. And so even now, being in a position where the whetū can be my teacher, and where the wind and the swells can be my teacher and have that connection, where a manu who shows me that the island that I think is there is a teacher. Now, and I'm so fortunate that I can widen my scope to just not only pakeke as teachers, but the environment teaching me still today in 2026, where climate change seems like that we can't do these things anymore. We can. And to be somebody that can show that opportunity so somebody can come along and do it, just do it. Like, that's what I done. Somebody spoken in front of us one day and I spoke to that person and look, here we are sitting before you today.
We are so going to talk back about those teachers soon. Tamaho, nōne hea koe I tahuri mai ai ki tēnei ao o te kaumwana o te whakatere waka.
I grew up on wakatoa from a young age. Always seen our men on our wakatoa named Takitumu pedal from my side of Tauranga all the way over to Moa every year on Waitangi Day. And I always thought, wow, you are awesome. I want to be like that. And as soon as I got onto wakatoa, I started hearing stories about another waka named Te Aurere. So I grew up on these stories of Te Aurere, and a lot of my seniors would go on to Te Aurere, so I would hear these stories and I'd be like, oh man, can't wait for that opportunity. And then the opportunity was given to me. In 2011, I was introduced to a waka named Ngahiraka-Mai-Tawhiti. And as soon as I seen the faces on their waka, I was just fell in love. And that's what caught me, was, like I said, the beauty of the waka. The navigation stuff has just kind of all coincided all together. But sailing the waka, I get thrills out of when we're moving on the waka and sailing. But learning how to navigate to get there is also, as the beauty of it as well. Brings it all out.
My wife, who's in the audience, her happy place is on the water. She's happy when there's a lot of fish, but she's, being on the water is her thing. Do you guys find your peace in the water, on the water?
Yeah, I think personally, under the water, for me, I find that so peaceful because it's a different world. And everything stops when you're under the water. All the noise is just so tranquil. And I think when I'm on top of the water, it's another world again. as a navigator, you're trained to automatically just be listening to the wind, how it's hitting your face. Your eyes are constantly not focusing but scanning. So like Hinerapa said, if you see a bird, you really fixate on it. If you see any signs, the way Jack taught us is not to look at it, not to stare at it, but to see it. So, say Matariki, for example. If you try and look too hard for it, you won't see it. It's almost like you've got to not look at it to see it. And that's, when we're on the waka, it's sort of like that sort of thing. You don't hone in too hard, you just keep yourself open to everything that might be going on. It's not that relaxing. I prefer under the water, but yeah.
I suppose it's not relaxing at all when you've got people's lives under your control and, you know, existential things, survival things, food things to think about. And for you, Hinerapa, you know, I know you've talked about in the past, you know, not looking at these stars as Manihera has talked about too. Can you just talk about that a little bit more with regard to the relationship that you have with these teachers, if you like, with these fellow travellers? They're not just a star, it's not just a wind. There's something more intimate and personal than that, isn't there?
Yeah, I guess there was it actually started with Pūrākau, being that was very normal for our tipuna to have a relationship, and it's transactional. It's not just, well, I believe it's transactional. They're not just things that you see, or they're not just, I don't know, like a tree out of the window. Like, you're a part of all of them. And so that was very natural, first and foremost, which I think is where you need to be at before, because you can know the names of the stars, but to be able to not navigate, but position yourself so that you're listening to them, kind of takes a lot than just looking at them. And I talk to them, and not even just on the ocean, but even on the whenua, every single time. Even before navigating, I'll just always look out and see, oh yeah, you're there, I'm okay, kind of thing. And if I was going through different things, like the different stars have like different characteristics. That's for me personally. But so for example, if I'm going through something and I need to be alone, I like to look at Atutahi, because Atutahi is kind of like a standalone star. Visu Tāraki Te Rangi. But if I need like excitement or something like that positions me well, where I'm amongst a lot of people, I look at Tautoru. There's so many different things, not even just navigation in terms of direction and speed and distance, because that's what a navigator in terms of what we do is supposed to be doing. But even to navigate in my life, that's how they help me as well. And so if we can build that kind of relationship where it becomes normal and not so voodoo, also distant, or such a fantasy fairy tale, because that's what it seems like most of the time. We don't even look at the stars half the time because the clouds are up. But anyways, I'm just trying to burst the bubble to make it, this is the reality of navigation. And so it can be quite humbling and also like annoying. Like, navigation is not always so glam. It actually sucks sometimes, and you've got to really love it. Like, if you're up at 2 a.m. in your driveway trying to understand the south celestial, the stars that point to the south celestial pole, it's not the coolest thing in the world. But you know what? Because it makes me feel amazing, I would scrub the holes on the first Wānanga any day to become a navigator, because that's what it takes. And it's kind of like cleaning your wharekai. You feel like a sense of, I'm giving back to the place that is making me safe. That's the same as the waka. They always say, or the chiefs, or my brothers would always say, we look after our mama because our mama will look after us. And that's the same with the whetū. We look after the whetū. Even though we're not, like my daily decisions, I buy a chewing gum and it's so not good for the environment. Am I looking after them? But, that's something else. But yeah, it's just trying to make it a bit reciprocal rather than me just taking from them. That's what I think a relationship with the stars and manua.
Kia ora. Tamaho, when you're on the water, it seems to me, as a person who doesn't understand that world, that it's a position of vulnerability. You're a speck on the ocean in a big ocean with a vast sky, but you're not alone, are you? Ko wai kei tō taha.
Ooh, that's a heavy question.
Yeah.
You got your tupuna with you. You got all those ones that have passed with you. But up in the sky, like we're quite lucky that we have a certain star in the constellation of Scorpio. Its Greek name is Shola, but it's been renamed Hekenukumai. And whenever this star comes up, it's a constant reminder of our chief Hekenukumai watching down on us. So just seeing him up in the sky like that, you're starting to feel that hononga, that connection, that he's always there protecting you. And even there's another star in there called Rehua that I've named my daughter after. So whenever I see that constellation and it's set up, I know that my daughter's there and I feel them around me as well. When you're in those moments and you realise, you're just a little speck in this big blue ocean, you just got to realise that this big world is way bigger than you. And just to be comfortable in that uncomfortableness, because like Hinirapa was saying, there's times where it's going to be cloudy and you ain't going to have any stars, and you just got to be comfortable knowing where you are and just being comfortable in that uncomfortableness. Yeah, so that's when all those other senses start coming in around. 2 nights before, you might have seen, say, that star Shola in a certain part of the sky. 2 nights later, it might be cloudy, but you know that star's going to be there at that same point that you've seen it 2 nights before. It might have moved just a little bit over, but you know he's there, and you start picking up on those sort of senses. So you're starting not only trying to listen into the environment, but also listening to the canoe as well. Yeah. And how she moves on the canoe, or on the water, and how she rolls and how she moves and that sort of stuff. But yeah, like I said, being comfortable in that uncomfortableness.
Nā reira, te wakara, it's a she.
Yeah, so our waka...
Katoa? Ngā waka he she?
Ka.
O neha?
Haunui he tāne.
Hauru ana he?
Ai, haunui.
Haunui.
Oh, haunui, okay.
But our waka Ngahiraka-Mai-Tawhiti is named after Hector's wahine, Hilda Busby.
Yes.
Ko whakaingoatia ko Ngahiraka-Mai-Tawhiti.
Yeah. Just bouncing off Hilda and Heck, I think one of the things, in a way, whatever part of the Māori world we're in, like for me it was kapahaka back in the day, we have elders, we have people who we look up to and respect, in awe a lot of the time. I just want to get a little bit of a feeling for the epic story of the return of navigation to the Pacifica with reference to Mau Piailug. I remember interviewing Nainoa Thompson years ago, and he was saying that one of Mau's earliest experiences on the waka with his father, and he was thrown, you probably might have heard this from Nainoa, he was thrown out the back and dragged through the ocean, the point being, you are the ocean. Can you talk a little bit about whether it's Mau or Nainoa or Hek or Jacko, what did these people mean to you, and what was there about the body of knowledge that they had that you wanted to participate in? Who are your heroes? Koe ngā tuahangata, ngā tauira, ngā pau I roto I tēnei ao, mokutu.
Yeah, I think, there's actually been some great leaders in our waka community. The likes of Hekenukumai. When I was young, Hector, he didn't care where you were from. He just welcomed you with open arms to come and sail and look after te aurere. And it didn't matter how long you were there for, or when you were going to leave. That wasn't an issue. He would keep you there as long as he could. I think he really enjoyed us growing and developing with that waka, because he'd got the bug when Hukalea had come into Aotearoa, and just the man was a genius in terms of how he could look at a piece of wood, create a waka out of that, and then repair the waka there were so many things about him, and I think he just loved us being around and learning from him. You know, he wasn't shy of a curse word, but the way I interpreted it is that he would curse at you with love. And so it was actually always nice to be around him. And then the likes of Jacko, you know, his leadership style is to let you know you're ready before you know you're ready. And it was really profound for me when I navigated to Hawaii. We left the Marquesas, and I sort of expected him to be on the radio, checking in, see how it's going. I had one radio call with him, and then I never heard from him again. And at the time, there was 7 waka in our fleet, and he was going from waka to waka, except for ours. And then we got to Hawaii, and I was like, Jack, how come you never come and checked in or come and talk to me? And he's like, I don't need to. You're already a navigator. And it was when he told me that, and it was like, dawned on me how he already had the abundance of confidence before I even realized. I think just leaders like that just have so much belief in you, that, yeah, when we're out there, I actually don't feel like a speck on the ocean. I actually feel real big. And it's how these guys have built me up to have confidence. And because we're in Te Ao Wairoa so much when we're in the ocean, you know, it's not just the living. We get so many tohu from the Wairoa that are guiding us. And actually, I hear them just letting me know that they're with me the whole way. That at no time they would ever let me get lost. So there's just there's such a feeling of, there is a calmness and safeness when we're out there. And I think it's largely part to these leaders that we've had.
Gosh, it must have been so affirming for you when you realised that you had it in you by being ignored.
To be honest, I didn't even think I had it. It wasn't about having it in me, because the level of accuracy that we found these islands with it's much greater than me. It's these tupuna that are actually guiding us in our waka, that's getting us to where we need to be. There are signs that they will show us. Like, they will show us what we need to see. It's up to us to be able to interpret it correctly. But, you know, I don't really think it's ever just about me. It's just all of us in the kaupapa of what we are fulfilling, that taonga tuku iho, and continuing it for these generations to come. So it is a great feeling to be part of, and I think that's why we train and teach others to share and experience what we've been experiencing, because it's something else altogether.
Kawe o tino I roti tau whakatere waka.
Yeah, definitely the chiefs. Jacko taught me, well, he didn't actually teach me, he allowed me to live on the waka without being scared. I never even thought of being scared, but that seems to be the first question that everyone asks. Are you ever scared? I'm like, no. And they're like, what? I'm like, I've never been scared, ever, in my life. And that's because we've gone through some little bit of rough weather, and he's smiling and laughing. And so I smile and laugh too, because that's just how it was. It was so light. And living amongst taio in that way, where we're taught, if it's raining, put a jacket on, put an umbrella up, go into the whare. It actually reminded me of when I was young and playing in the rain was okay. And it was cool, and it was kind of encouraged. So being a child again was always something that, I'm not saying Jacko is a child, but we all want to be kids still. We all want to play, we all want to laugh by holding this responsibility, yes, but having fun with it. And living through it. And so that was something that I will take forever, that I didn't even know, or he probably didn't even know that he was giving to me, is a sense of security and safety in no matter what situation I was in. And that was like all of the chiefs. There are so many stories that they have that are passed down to us that teaches us to be confident in ourselves. Or like with Papa Mo, I love all of his stories because they're so simple. And to him, it's just a way of being, where to us it's idolised, and it's a way that our tipuna, he was a living example of how our tipuna were, and the chiefs got to be a part of that and see that. For example, he had never been to Hawaii or Tahiti, but he still navigated the waka there. They had asked him, and he said, it's because my father told me. His father hadn't been there. And they asked him, well, did your father go? And go, no. Well, how did your father know? His father told him. And so the power of what made us who we are was still alive. And that reminder helped me understand that I can be Māori in this world that is showing me every way not to be Māori. That doesn't value being Māori as well. It's Māori second. Contribute to this society first. Whereas I want to flip that and be like, being Māori is just being in life.
Yeah, kia ora. Manihere, I want to come back a little bit to the development of navigation within Aotearoa, very heavily influenced by Mau from Micronesia and with other areas of the Pacific. Do you have a comment or whakaaro on the Pacific-wide regeneration of waka and Aotearoa's place in that?
Yeah, the whakapapa of the mātauranga is really important to us, and so we acknowledge it back to Mau Piaila. He trained a couple of Hawaiians, and then one of them was Nainoa Thompson, the other being the late Shorty Birdleman. And Nainoa actually set up a school of navigation in Hawaii where he took two from several of the islands in the Pacific to come up and learn navigation with him. And so Nainoa, he had taught under Mau, learned under Mau, then he had adapted that mātauranga to suit his way of thinking. And then Jacko was one of those that with Piripi Evans, and then Jacko learned it and then adapted it to his way of learning to be able to teach us. And so there was I think that was back in 1995, and there was very little opportunities to actually learn navigation. I think there was a series of Wānanga starting in the year 2000 to 2010 in preparation to the trip to Rapa Nui. There's about 300 people that went through that, but navigation's not for everyone. Like Hinarapa said, at times it really sucks. You'll be cold and wet for days, and you'll be so tired, sleep deprived, and all you want to do is stay in that cozy, damp bed of yours, but you have to get up, and that's where the discipline comes, and to drive yourself up in the cold night to make sure you got a reference, you see something to be able to make sure you're on track, or if the waka's off track, for you to be able to factor it into your head, to keep your wayfinding so that you know where you are. And that really isn't for everyone. And so it's just been recently, really, with Jacko establishing Kura Waka in Tauranga Moana as a navigation school. We have recently established Ngā Mata Karua as a navigation school, and to actually just try and give people the opportunity to come and learn about navigation. Because, navigation is a pathway down so many different channels of life. Like I said at the start, the fundamental is just trying to be the light in your community that shines bright. And so all we're doing is exposing people to the fundamentals of navigation and trying to give them an experience out on the moana. Because really, for our whānau and whainga, there's a real strong generation of trauma where people aren't engaging in the moana. So as a basic one, all we've been doing is holding wānanga to just get people feeling the sand between their toes as a first step. It's that basic before we even get out on the waka. So yeah, it's just bringing back some of these concepts to make, like Hinarapa said, there's so many stars out there, and there's actually, you can have relationships with them in terms of, when we look at them, I've had the experience where a star has seen me back, and then it's a two-way relationship, and you think, while I see how bright that star is, how bright does it see me? And it just makes you think of what you can be in this world in terms of trying to be a positive influence. trying to cut back on the road rage, all those little things. Yeah.
That's so cool. We'll come back to the navigation because I really want to get into that.
Come back to road rage.
But I mean, just quickly though, I mean, would you say that the style or the type of navigation that's happening now, yes, it's organic in the modern era and it's got these roots with Mau and others, is it, do you think, vastly different to what Māori navigation used to be like, or is even that a relevant question?
It's very much still holistic learning. The way Jacko has taught us is to really protect the mātauranga. So we don't put it up online. We only share it to those that we think are worthy to receive it. And that may take a year of working on the waka, doing maintenance, before you're ready to even receive some of this mātauranga. So we are really protective around it. And it really is that holistic learning for the person to be ready. We don't want to dump too much on them because it's just not respecting the mātauranga really and the whakapapa that it's come from. And we try to avoid putting frameworks in place. I also feel sometimes if we try and force something, it won't work. The best way is when things just, we all know this, when it flows and works out naturally, we know we're on the right path. The other step is with Tamaho and I, we're out sailing in the weekend on an overnighter from Tutukaka over to Aorangi in the poor nights. As soon as we got out on the water, there were 3 whales just right in front of us after the karakia finished, and one whale came out of the water into this massive back slam. And it's those sort of tohu that we saw that was like, okay, this feels right. We're getting good support. Then when we left Aorangi on the way back, we had this beautiful albatross, toroa, and following us. And again, just getting those signs, it's just reaffirmation that, okay, yes, we are on the right track. Keep it baby steps. Don't try and reach too far, but we're on the right track.
Tamaho, I'd like to ask you, I mean, these guys have intimated that there were times when they were in the deep end. Was there a time when you were thrown in the deep end and you were rescued? By who? What did you learn from that person?
I'll speak for our trip home last year, Samoa. So I was given the task of navigating from the Kermitics back to Aotearoa. And there were a couple of days there where I had no stars at all. And I remember I wanted to see a certain lineup of stars, a certain lineup of a cluster of constellations altogether. And I knew if I could see this lineup and I hit it in the right place, we were aiming straight for where we started from. And when we left Aotearoa, before that, I remember telling Toiora, who was the navigator at the time, there's the lineup, bro. That's what I want to see when we get home. That's what I need to see. That's my tohu to tell me that we have made it. And I remember watching the sunset, and I told Toiora I want to go for a 15-minute sleep. And I said, all right, there's the sunset. That's where I want it. And then a star popped up after sunset, and I said, oh, that looks like Scorpio. And he's like, nah, that's Mars. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Scorpio, bro. And if it is Scorpio, then we're aiming exactly where I said we would be. So I went down, and about 5 minutes later, they woke me up. Bro, you need to come and look at this. So I got up. What's up? It was Scorpio. I was like, and myself going, keep calm. Walked up to the front, and I could see this whole group of constellations lining up, which we call Te Waka Maui. But at this time of the year, we call it Te Waka Tamarereti. But at that time of the year, it was called Te Waka Maui. And when I seen that happening, I knew Matariki was coming up over there. And all the lineup of the stars, you have Scorpion Tail setting, you have the 2 bright stars, pointers pointing towards the Southern Cross, you have the Diamond Cross, the False Cross, you have Canopus over here, you have Sirius over here, you have Orion's Belt, and then around to Taurus, and then Matariki behind. When I seen all of that, I knew exactly where we were. And within, I think it was like 12, 14 hours later, we bang smacked into Aotea. And so that moment where I was like, not say I was struggling, but it was like come on, man. And then it popped up, and I was like, yeah.
tino whakamātau te hoki tērā. Hene rapa, ko tīmata te kōrero mō ngā atua. Hea raia te nui o tēnei me te karakia i roti a koe te mahi whakatere waka?
E ki rā wari he nui vai pānga mai o te awairua ki roto i ēnei mahi. I ia pitinga mai i a tōnga hoki o te rā ka karakia mātou. Engari, ko te wahanga nui, ko te whakarite i a koe anō, kia kite koe i ngā tohu. Because you can see them, or some people may know the sun is going to be here, the moon is there, stars are there, but you may not have the eyes to see them. And so meaning you can still feel lost even though they're there. But what a karakia does is reaffirming. And because, we're not praying and like saying, give me the strength. You're saying, I have the strength, I'm here, I see you. Come to me now. And that kind of way of carrying yourself is very important in navigation, because our chief said to us, all a navigator is somebody that makes good decisions. And if you aren't good within yourself to be able to see one, you could be worrying about bills or your mortgage that you need to pay and you can't actually see what you're supposed to see. A karakia can prepare you so that you are ready for that. It's te kaupare i e rā hauki no te wā, e pai ai e tika ai koe kia hana tū whakamua. And that's pretty much all it is really, is to be able to see it and to make that decision. Because you can also see all of them and still not believe, am I on the right track? Yeah. You have to make that decision. Yeah. Because, if you're seeing all you see is blue, right? And you don't know how to break that up. And then you say, I think I'm going south. Do you think or do you know? You'd be like, maybe I'm going, I'm just using simple terms and it's totally not going to be like this, but maybe I'm going east. So do you think or do you know? And so you have to be in that position where you know. If you don't, then that's when you're lost.
Okay, let's talk about how you get into that position where you know. If I think about navigation, it seems, it is. It's such a huge body of knowledge. How do you acquire in your studies this knowledge of the stars, the knowledge of the winds, the knowledge of the swells? We'll talk about the boats, the waka, later on, but what is there, and then what you all learned that gave you that information about the environment within which you sail? I mean, did you sit down with a whole lot of a star map and learn them all and go out at the night? Or, what are some of the nuts and bolts of that education to be a navigator?
That was one. So we did get given a list. There are 67 stars, and this is the list that Wari was talking about that we don't put up online. And it has a sequence and goes from the Greek name, Māori name, declination, the right ascension, the whare that it's in, and the hauwha. So that's a lot of information on its own. But we played a game that was around the world within all of us. Kura Waka, so there's Papahek, Joko Piripi Evans, then our tuakana, which is my tingane, there are 3 of them, and then there's us 7 plus, so there's pluses. In us 7, we would play this game, and it was the last man standing. So we would go through these lists individually, and then the goal was to come and be the winner. So that kind of helped us. And then there was also oriori. There are a few oriori that we know. There's Te Waka Tamareresi or Te Waka Maui. That, sorry, Chief, I'm just going to let the cat out of the basket and say, that was actually created by our chief. But really, it was from kōrero tuku iho. And creating a constellation is literally what Tamaho just done. He could see one star and tell us where the rest are just because of the relationship to each other. So creating a constellation is literally helping you to see them without seeing them. And our chief done that for us. And because he taught us that, I knew the same as what Tamahau knew. If all I can see is mahutonga, then I can fully do that same sequence that Tamahau just explained to us. And so that's also another rautaki. Another rautaki would be kōrero tuku iho, like tamanui tērā, me ona wāhine rua, hine raumati, me hine takurua. And so it depends on how you are as a learner. Some didn't take to the list and the maths and the deviation charts and the calculating your speed. Some took more to feel, and it's because I feel this is the way we're going. And so it's based on everything, like how we said earlier, some people may not like navigation. Tama loves seeing our mama flowing beautifully. I love knowing where I am. You know, different people love leading. Different people love the kai aspect. You need everything. Some people like to be sailors and put the sail up and be a cool steerer because that makes them feel good. You know, and to elevate all positions, because if our waka, if our hoi broke, Tama is the person, you know. Or if somebody's lost, maybe, you know, James is the person to ask. Or if somebody needs guidance or needs therapy, maybe Wari's the person. Such a good listener, you know? And so everybody has something different to contribute, and that's important because he waka ekenua is really real. You know, if we're struggling, somebody's struggling, you can feel that. Our waka is not as big as the stage. And so even just moving together beyond navigation is to be able to live as one first.
You talk about the stars, and I think we can all appreciate, the constellation. What about the winds and the swells, though? How many of them are there? This is probably heaps.
Hundreds.
I'll just speak on terms of the weather. I was quite fortunate in Tauranga. We have a kaimai ranges behind us, and I was brought up to know that if you see a stack of clouds on the kaimais, it's eventually going to rain. So I was using that as my telltale to tell me weather. The other one was, if I knew that something bad was out in the ocean or on the east side, all of our birds will fly back inland. So those little things growing up like that, those sort of tohu, helped me understand our weather, particularly in Tauranga. And then I remember having a conversation with Jacko in terms of weather, islands, and he always said that if you have an island and it has a high point, there's always going to be a wet side and a dry side. That massive clouds are going to come towards the island and stack up on top of that mountain. They'll drop all their rain on one side and then lift and then eventually come over. So I liken that to the Kaimai Ranges and the same sort of thing. So over years and years of just keep monitoring that, and that's how I kind of learned my weather patterns and stuff like that. Yeah. So
has climate change made a difference to those weather patterns?
Yeah, it has.
Have you guys seen all that?
Yeah. Yeah. Like recently, we just had so much rain, man, in these last 6 months, right back to even in the summertime, it was just so much rain. So it had a major change into what I remember when I was a kid. Yeah.
And what about the swells? We heard a little about the winds. We heard a little bit about the stars. What about the swells?
I think the swells are one of the hardest to be able to see on this. When you're out on the ocean, there's so many different swells, and they'll be coming at you from all different angles. And so when in the morning, sunrise is one of the most important times. So we'll see the sunrise in the east area. And then that's when we'll get our position of what direction we want to be heading in. And at that time, we actually feel the motion of the ocean go through the waka. And that's based on how the swells are coming through the waka and then leaving the waka. So it's a real feel thing. As the sun rises, it becomes too high and we can't be using it anymore. So there's a large period of time when we're just on the swell. The wind is more fickle than the swell, so the wind can change direction throughout the day, whereas the swell, it's the long swell that won't change as quickly. All those short swells, they're generated by the close wind, they'll change real quickly too. So it's the long swell you've got to be able to see, and it's all patterns in the ocean of the distance between each swell that you've got to constantly be monitoring. One of those things that you're not necessarily watching all the time, but you're feeling. So there's a great story of Maupi Ailu being in the hull of the waka asleep, but felt the canoe go off course because of that motion changing in his sleep, where he got up and had to identify the off course and put it back on course. Because the swells really are, they're so difficult to decipher sometimes. And it's probably one of the easiest things to go off course on. If the swells are all looking the same, and the same height, and the same you can easily go off course 90 degrees, and the swell pattern looks exactly the same. But fortunately, we don't ever rely on one thing. There's, at midday, we'll check that sun again, make sure it's where we expect it to be. The cool thing about the moon is that it's day and night at different times. So that's a really good reference marker as well, in terms of where that is. Another example is when we're crossing different areas of the ocean, we'll get different signs from, say, the equator. For us, it's famous for the black dolphins. So we see the black dolphins at the equator. There's a range of signs that we'll do rather than try and rely on just one at any one time.
And I suppose you can only learn about the swells by being on the water and actually feeling. There's no map or chart that you can take home and swat up on.
Yeah, swells are experience.
Yeah.
You have to have experience on the ocean to be able to read your swells. But it's still, I grew up as a sailor and I live beside the ocean. It's still one of the hardest things to read, for sure.
Hoi no he pāpai a koutou. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask? If you do, throw your ringa ki runga and we'll get you a microphone. Anyone? There's one over there. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou. Te tāhua hoki o tō koutou kōrero.
Kia ora.
Such a blessing to hear, thank you. I guess one of my questions was, it was for Tama really. It was pretty cool. The concept of you just picturing that stuff, you just were able to say, I saw one thing here and then imagine where everything else was. Is that something that you think is possible to learn just from studying a map, or is that just hundreds of hours or thousands of hours out on the water, or I guess maybe I'm hopeful that I could learn it just sitting at my desk.
Just being honest, that whole lineup of stars that I could recite is actually in a ori in a song that Henerapa mentioned, and it's actually Jacko's kōrero, but one of our senior skippers, he created it into a lullaby for one of his new nephews that was being born. And when we recite this ori or this lullaby, usually when we're studying, we go outside and we start looking at that constellation, at each constellation as we start naming them through the song. So then when you do the song over and over again, you just become comfortable with it. Whenever you see one of those constellations, you know where the rest of them are. We talk about a star list of 66 stars. When you're comfortable with knowing your entire star list, you can probably name one of those stars and be able to point out the rest of them. It might be even in the daytime. You might see the last star setting at a sunrise, and you'll be able to know where they are in the daytime as well. So that same, like Henerapa talked about, the relationship with the stars, being comfortable with knowing where they are, even in the daytime. But yeah, I'd say that whole lineup that I talked about, I learnt in a song. Yeah.
You can learn it in one night.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And that's like half the night sky in the southern hemisphere.
But I think just in terms of your question as well, if I could add on, I feel like a lot of it's muscle memory in terms of, just going out and constantly looking, just go, like if you know one star, just try, oh yeah, there it is, what else is around it? So that, we're so familiar with Mahutonga, the Southern Cross, that we only need to see one star to know the full constellation of it. And then from that, it may be a cloudy night, but you know exactly where the other constellations are all sitting. And that's just muscle memory from, I've seen it so many times that it's printed in your mind. An example, we're just up at a Wānanga recently, and it was a cloudy night, but one star shone out. And they were, this cohort was asking me, I was like, oh yeah, that's such and such. And then I said, behind these clouds that one was Mariao. And then I was like, oh, there's Hokalea's going to come out here. Then we got Corvus, the Manu, Mahutonga over there. And then in about 10 minutes, it cleared up. And fortunately, it was all right. And so, yeah, got good buy-in. But it's actually amazing what you can do just from muscle memory. Yeah.
And I suppose with muscle memory, that's only ever going to happen when you get practice.
Yeah.
So, is everyone hanging out to get a place on a voyage when there's something happening? Is there a lot of competition to rack up those hours?
Actually, it's kind of difficult to pull up because, one thing is that you're not always going to leave on the day that we said we're going to leave. Like, for example, our voyage to Samoa, we didn't leave until a week after. But then you can't also determine when you're going to get back. And so to get that time off work, if you're an adult, it's kind of difficult. So ideally, yes, but it's got to take a real big commitment beforehand to be able to position yourself so that you can become available for a voyage. Example, a waka was leaving a month ago and didn't go. And, everybody changes their whole schedules to try and fit it and then get to the day and say, oh, we can't go because of X, Y, and Z. And so you would think so, but no. Yeah, it's kind of who's available.
It does say a lot about, this ever-accelerating kind of world where, we've got to work hard to get attention to things that matter with regard to that.
I think we firmly believe too that the waka will pick its crew. It doesn't matter how hard we want to be on there. If we're not right for that waka and that crew, then we won't be on the waka when it leaves.
Okay, I want to talk about the waka. I mean, with regard to navigation, we've got a bit of an idea about the importance of swells, winds, stars. I'd like to get back to the movement of the planet a little bit later, but tell me about the care and the knowledge of waka that's important in this navigation world. Apart from things like maintenance and stuff, what does the waka mean?
The relationship you have with your waka is central. It's such a key component of being crew, of being captain, being navigator, to be able to feel the waka when it's out on the water, but also feel the waka as your mother. The navigator is your father, but just focusing on the waka as your mother, when you're with it for so long, you really feel that relationship, that it is there to it's protecting you, it'll keep you safe, as long as you look after your mother. And it's such a, to actually get to that stage where you feel that. So you'll be in the hull, and you can feel that waka. Everything that's happening outside on that waka, you feel it in your hull, in your bed. Or when you're holding the steering paddle, you can feel that whole waka through that steering paddle. And Hector Busby was such a strong one to teach us to feel the waka. And it's cool that Tamaho's come through as being one that's so strong on wanting the waka to be in its best condition, taking pride in how it sails and sits on the moana, because it's a massive aspect. We shouldn't be leaving to go for a sail if we don't know how to look after our waka. And there are times when things will go wrong. We need to know how to repair it out on the moana. It's a big skill to have. There's not many within our community that are so good at looking after the waka because it is such a technical skill. Fortunate to have some guys come through.
Tamaho, what's a checklist of things that you go through when you're considering your waka? I bet you got a long list.
Before a major voyage, heaps of spare parts. Take a bit of wood, take a few strops, a whole lot of lashing cord. There's actually quite a few things there I think about. If this breaks, what are we gonna use to repair it? If that breaks, what are we gonna do? I'll just go back to wakatapu. And when the two waka, Te Aurere and Ngahiraka, left Aotearoa, Te Aurere was carrying 3 hoi. They had their steering oar, they had their spare steering oar, and they had Ngahiraka's spare steering oar, and they broke all 3. They repaired them, made another one, they broke it again. I think they broke about 9 paddles before they actually ended up with this thing we call Frankenhoi, which is actually made up of 3 different hoi and somebody's bed. Like that's how what's the word? Ingenuity. That's how you have to be out there. You have to be able to come up with things with the limited resources you have. And I'm pretty sure it was Toyota's bed at the end. He didn't have a bed, and they ended up taking his bed. They had drills and all the modern technology on there to try and repair it. And what they found at the end of the day, the best method that they used was lashing everything together. So they had lashed 3 different shafts, and they had somebody's bed that they created into the blade, and that got them safely to tupuai. So you got to be really, be able to work with limited resources out there. So when I prep, I make sure that we have spare stuff here and there. But
I mean, what sort of kai do you take on, mate, for your long trips? I mean, what's the long trip, for example, and how much kai, what sort of kai?
Oh, yeah, kai prep. So we last trip we done it a bit different to what we usually do. We're used to taking, we'll freeze all of our meat, and then we'll try and eat it within the first 3 days, because it starts going rotten. And then we'll start going to like corned beef and noodles, corned beef and rice, corned beef and corned beef. Then we get sick of corned beef, then we'll go to fishing, then we start catching fish, then we'll have sushi, might have a bit of boiled fish, crumb fish, fried fish. Get sick of fish, then we go back to corned beef and noodles again. But last year, we tried to do some food preservation. So we've done a bit of food preservation for our trip. We had some things like lamb stews, beef stews, and what we'll do is we'll take 4 jars, put them into a pot, heat that up with another pot of rice, and that was our kai. And it really, really worked well. Yeah, it was good because it's saved a whole lot of cooking time, where the kai was already pre-cooked, and it just cut down on our preparation time as well, because, well, you don't want to have a cold kai or a kai that's taken ages to cook, stuff like that. You kind of want it quick, hard and fast. So we've learned from all of our previous voyages and trying to do better.
Can I just paint a picture of what Ngahiraka is like? Because Ngahiraka is a different waka to all of our waka that we have now. She the only carved waka at the moment that's out there voyaging at the moment? The rest are all fiberglass. And they have soft rope, but we have these hard, love our hard rope that give me the best calluses in the world when I shake a man's hand. My hand is harder. And so we can't just go to Mitre 10. She is lashed together. Majority are fiberglass together. So even that in itself, the type of materials that we're taking is totally different to most of the waka. We only just got a fridge, which is more like a chili bin that's connected up. Very, very fortunate because, before we had to freeze meat and then kind of let it last and sit in the chili bin and try and hold it. Our voyage from here to Samoa was 22 to 23 days, there and back. One way, and one way was the same time. And so to have kai that lasts that long in modern day when we're not used to preserving kai the way our tepuna did, buckets, plastic, unfortunately, glass are things that kind of help us preserve the kai. But if you're out there, so say you are going for 20 days, you prepare the waka for 30 days. Waka tapu again, that 9 broken voyage. They prepared the waka, so they anticipated that they were going to get there in 26 days. They prepared enough food and water, fresh water, for 36 days. They were out for 43. So to have kai and to have water, because we can't necessarily drink from the ocean, they had to catch rainwater. And they ate rice or like a cup of kai, and they only had a cup of water every day when it's hot. All of those kinds of things. And so to try and paint that kind of picture while we live here, beautiful, I drive to Pack and Save 5 minutes down the road. I'm good, I'm sussed. I've got water in my tap in my house, running water. It's totally different. And so from living this kind of world and growing up into it to going into having to prepare for something like that is very, very humbling. And it makes you come back home loving water just for running. Loving, we sleep on yoga mats. That's on plywood. Best sleep in the world. You know why? Because it's on our mama. We look at our mama, 5-star hotel, way better, but I've seen somebody come on and they're like, you go on this? I'm like, hell yeah, we go on this. What do you mean? We go on her, not this. But that's how we are. You know, she's a waka, not a boat. You know, don't say the B word. That's how we are. And it definitely keeps you safe just by being like that. And it keeps her safe. That's the biggest part. And, you know, going off just quickly in terms of navigation, we were going, and my part area was Te Kura Te Parata, the Tongan Trench. And you go from deep, deep waters, 9,000 metres, well, 8,000, and then we have islands that get to like 4 metres. And so if you understand water and how it travels and how that turbulence creates, that's not good for our waka. And understanding her flow and being, you know, what the boys were saying about protecting her, I had to make sure, even though I wanted to go this way, but the swells were here, wind was here, that's not good for our mama. But I want to go there. But, you know, wind has to be here. That's beautiful, beautiful. Here, not good for her. And so I had to make the conscious decision, if I'm going to go this way, what am I going to do to her? And so instead we went that way, and it made it a little bit nicer on her. Those things are important. You know, you're never going to go in a straight line. And that's something that is a good reminder here. You're never going to go up. Be like that. It's cool.
So when you have those experiences with Te Kura Te Parata, what does it say to you about ngā kōrero tuku iho? And how on they might have been.
So on. And even understanding the kōrero in all the islands as well, that they had the same stories. Like, we were talking to the captain whane of Ngaualofa, which is the waka in Samoa. And she was saying that when they go to Tonga, they actually have to go in between Tonga and Fiji, which is, so we were heading this way, Tonga, Fiji, totally not where I wanted to go. Reason being, deep waters, a lot of Tonga, if you know the Tongan Islands, there's a chain of islands, a lot of hazards for our waka. And so they go there, they get picked up by a boat, and then they go to Tonga. And so to hear that local knowledge is also important. To hear that they believe too, and even in their stories, you know, most treacherous part of the ocean. It was just affirmation to what we know in our puku as well, that our tipuna are, wow. And just to be a part of that, and just to live that, and to use that as guidance is such a privilege.
Are there times when you feel that you might be close to being as smart as your tupuna if something comes off?
I don't think that's ever been. I thought, I'm always like, no, like chasing up there. But one thing that, and that was because of the chief, was that I'd never felt lost in all of that. And because of our kōrero tipuna, I never felt lost. And because of that relationship with our whitu, never felt lost. He always spoke about being asked, before you leave, can you see the island? It's a very important concept and way of being. You know, you can't see it, but you can see it. And to be able to say that I could is a, like, what? Like, I think that that's somebody else. You know, but to have that, not even just experience, it's a life, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of being. Very, very fortunate to be that lucky.
Wow. He pāpai anō, he kōrero, he akoto, any questions? Yes, microphone down here, please. Just getting the microphone here, because we're live streaming at the moment, so the whānau at home may be listening.
Kia ora tātai, kia ora koutou, miharo te kōrero. At the very beginning, you asked a question about being on the water, was a sense of peace being on the water. And our first speaker said you preferred under the water. What does that mean? Is that like you're off the waka and being dragged along under the water?
No, I guess when to be really accurate, when I was young, I watched this movie called The Silent One. It was about a deaf boy growing up in the islands, and about how, and for some reason it just resonated with me. When he's under the water and swimming, it's just a peace. It's like tranquility. You know, you don't stress. you don't panic. You don't even think about breathing. You're just in such a state of calmness. And so that's so I dive a lot, and that's the place I go to when I'm diving, is just to be at home, basically. Just be at home in that environment and just to enjoy it. And then when you've got to come up for air, come up for air. But yeah. And then when we're sailing the waka, it's, you know, in all reality, you've got to be on. You've got to be switched on the whole time, because the wind can change so fast. And I've been in situations where we're sailing, the wind's coming this way, but then all of a sudden the clouds start coming this way. And you look at it and going, if the clouds are coming that way, that means the wind's coming that way. And so you got to realize that the wind's about to change a complete 180 real fast, and you got to prepare your waka so that you don't break anything. That's probably the main thing, is we're constantly trying to keep the waka safe and our crew safe. So we're actually on alert a lot of that time when we're just observing risk. You know, from time to time you get the big rogue waves come through, and just that's probably the most scariest times I've had, is when a wave has come across and washed guys of our crew, not overboard fortunately, but from one side to the other side where the railings have caught them, but you think, shucks, we almost lost them. And it can be in the daytime, just totally, every now and again, a big wave will come through that catches you. So we really are alert. It's not that peacefulness that you think, because things can change just like that, and you've got to be ready to respond. Yeah,
that's scary. That's scary. He pātai no? Oh, Hayley.
Kia ora. For those of us who are like massive fans and were glued to Kura Waka's socials, watching Te Hekenga ki toa and watching the stars in the sky and new stars on the waka, there's another star that I'd love to hear about. Can you share with us a bit about Doughboy?
Doughboy. So back in 2012, our waka Ngahiraka-Mai-Tawhiti, when she was completed, she had two carved figures that used to sit on the back on the taurapa. And when the waka left in 2012, about a week later, the male figure, there was a female male figure, the male figure jumped off for a swim. His name was Tangaroa, and he went for a swim, and we haven't seen him since. So they pulled the lady in, her name was moana, they pulled her in, and as soon as they got to Tubuai, the locals there, they noticed that there was a wahine figure on there, and they thought, oh, she's a bit lonely, eh? So then they pulled out this tiki, this short, stumpy looking guy like this, and gifted him to the waka. He had a name, Tangaroa, but when he got on board, I think it was Jacko and Mahara, they were trying to come up with a name for him, and they decided on the name Doughboy. And if you know what a doughboy is, in a boil up, well, he looks similar to a doughboy. So he's a little carved tiki, he's quite short and stumpy, he's got a bit of a bald head, looks like a doughboy. But that's Doughboy, and he's one of our kaitiaki on our waka, and yeah, like Hayley was saying, he's one of our stars on our waka. I say he's actually a navigator, because his eyes are always open. If he could talk, just imagine all the stories he could tell. But he's always there on watch. He sits on our waka when we're traveling, permanently sits up on the navigator seat. And that's where he sits, even in all the storms and all the rain and all the heavy weather. He's the one that stays there while we're the ones that go down bottom. So to us, he's the man. He's one of our main persons on board. Even we talked about the taha wairua and stuff. There's times where I would look back at him as I was steering. I'll look back at him. Yeah, bro. Just one of those, just a cheeky, yeah. Or look back at him, and if he's looking a bit dry, you might give him a bit of a water or a bit of a drink or a bit of a oil. But yeah, that's Doughboy. Yeah.
Wouldn't the world be boring if we didn't have taonga like Doughboy in it? Oh, God. Okay. I'm not sure if I got this right, but I think one of your recent trips to Samoa was actually a test. And the test is go and find Samoa. I mean, that's a hell of a test. So when you get that as an example, what do you do? What goes through your mind when you're told, go and find Samoa? What did you do?
Yeah, so, well, actually it wasn't before, like 6 months prior to leaving to go to Samoa, I was looking for Samoa. And so it wasn't just like I just turned up and then we just, I don't know, had to find. I had to already know or see Samoa before we even left. And so that took a lot, you know, if you're in the reo space and, you know, going to kura reo, teaching te reo Māori and all of those things, going to kaupapa, if you're passionate about revitalising kaupapa, you know, that takes a big toll in terms of time and energy. And so trying to do all of that and then trying to be ready to go and look for an island that you've never been to and a big ocean that you've actually never been on is crazy. Now that I just say that out loud, it's the first time. But yeah, and like, you know, we were working 18-hour days and then having 6 hours, the rest of it, to try and become a navigator and be ready for that. So most of the time for that 6 months prior to, I was getting 4 hours sleep. That was probably the like normal. And just because you're trying to live on land and live on the ocean at the same time, it doesn't mix. And so all of that, even just before seeing the island, is probably harder than actually looking for the island, I must say. Was that harder for you? Yeah, I think that was probably the hardest part. And people like Doughboy, well, we say he's a person, like he was next to me the whole time. I actually was lucky enough to sleep on top. I didn't go underneath. And when you're up constantly all that time, it's safer for everybody else not to talk to you. And so having tikanga, like where it was normal for tohunga to stay outside. I'm not a tohunga, by the way, but for tohunga to stay outside just for safety reasons and so they can be alert and do their job. That was kind of the space that we had to put ourselves into. But having Doughboy with me the whole time made me feel sane, even though I was probably insane at the time. And, well, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, and so to be able to get there and be comfortable in it took a lot. And so that discomfort that Tamaho was talking about earlier, I would try and train and I would try and do all of these things. So when I got out there, it was actually easy. And we take that into everything. You know, if you train for comp or if you train for haka, you know, your trainings are essentially harder if you're doing top drops after top drops after top drops in comparison to just one good top drop. You know, you can do that in everything. And so that's just the same as what we done. I don't know, but, well, Watsu didn't say, but Piripi Smith, who is another one of my tingane tuakana, he said get as much sleep as you could. And this was like the week before we left. I went to go stay with them, him and Mitch, his wife, and he said get as much sleep because you're not going to get that out there. And when you can, and then I got to speak to him when I was navigating, and he said, if you can, sleep. But I was so happy to hear that because I wanted to hear that so bad. I just didn't allow myself because I thought I can only have 2 hours sleep. Yeah. And so I prepared myself for that. If I got extra, then I'm happy.
Yeah. What about you, Tamaho? If you got the test, the exam, go and find Samoa. How do you do that? How do you break up the trip? How do you choose your crew? What are the things you go through to do that?
So our crew, we call ourselves the Generation 3, there were 7 of us. And so what we've done is we broke the entire trip up into 6 legs. From Aotea, originally from Tuhua, from Tauranga to Kermadec, then from Kermadec to Niue, Niue to Samoa, Samoa down to Tonga, to Eua, and Eua to Kermadec, and Kermadec home. The longest leg in there was from the Kermadec to Niue, which was around 720 nautical miles. Every other one was around the 560 mark, 560 around 560 nautical miles, around that mark. So we just made sure that everybody had a good opportunity to test their abilities. So what's happened, Toiora, being our seniors in our group, we kind of just placed our crew in. the longer leg, we decided it would be a tandem, so 2 navigators sharing that opportunity because it was such a long leg. So that's how we prepped our navigators for that. And yeah, then you started just looking at your leg, your particular leg, the different tohus that you needed, the different manu that you might see, the different elements you might see in your particular leg. What might be your plan of action of, say, we knew that Niue was quite east, so we had to make a lot of eastings, going out east. So yeah, those navigators had to train for their particular leg, and then I trained for my particular one. But I was quite fortunate to also be training on the way up and on the way down, and learning from my brothers and sisters. Yeah.
Let's just talk about your brothers and sisters. On the boat, or on the waka rather, you know, tēnei me te whakahaere tāngata. You know, I would imagine as much as knowing about your waka, as much as your environment, knowing about the people that you're with is just as important. What did you all learn about, I don't know, pastoral care or people management when dealing with or working with your crew? Spill it, bro.
I was actually really lucky. I had so many Wānanga with Jacko and Stan up north, where every Wānanga would turn up and they would tell the same stories over and over. After a while, I got so sick of those Wānanga. But believe it or not, it was those stories that stuck with me that taught me how to keep calm and be mindful of the others on the crew. Because Jacko, you know, he talks about the mistakes he had made. You know, he openly shares this so that we can learn from those mistakes. So that when it came time to me on the waka and my steerer was going off course, instead of berating the steerer, just allow them to do their best, but factor in how much off course they are. And that was a massive learning for me. And it was only from going through that I realized the richness in those stories in Wānanga, that it wasn't about knowing every star, it was actually knowing those little things that will help you out on the moana to keep yourself centered, but keep the harmony with the waka. It's too small a place to have raru. It's so important that everyone feels comfortable and safe on the waka, because emotions can get high when you're sleep deprived, when everyone's fatigued. With us, everyone was starving. So yeah, pastoral care of people is so important.
We were very fortunate that, one, we had a crew of navigators, which was foreign, because if we think about the gen before us, a lot of the crew were either learning or the first time or a bit of experience, and they were either the only navigator with our chief. And so we were fortunate to have a crew that's been together for 10 years, one, built that relationship with each other so that we were brothers and sisters, and we are brothers and sisters. But then two, if one felt off, then it was okay for the other one to pick it up, kind of thing. So it was important for us to go together and come back together. And there were times where that didn't happen. There were times where we wanted to swear at each other, but then because we have that relationship and that we got to work through it and talk through it, there were also times where we were crying on each other and having each other's backs and talking through them. It was very important. And one thing that I learned before going out was that, and that was a quarter from Mahara, and it's probably from the chiefs too, is that, you know, storms aren't the hardest thing, or the scariest thing. It's always people. And that is definitely true. Like, because you don't know what somebody is going through and you don't know how to bring them out. You know, when you're going through a storm, you've got to center yourself and you're expecting what's to come. But you don't know what you're going to get from somebody who's going through it. And fortunately for me, I didn't have any reason to go through it so that I could be at the time. But maybe in a voyage in the future, if I'm not ready to leave land, that I might. I don't know, but we went through all of that together, and we came up with ways, such as marae, being on a marae, resolving conflict, and seeing that growing up, we were able to adopt that on the waka as well, so that we can go together, because that's what happened.
Yeah,
And it's the most important part because you got to go together.
Is there a particular? I take the sleep deprivation. Is there some other thing that happens at sea which is a common cause of difficulty?
Yeah, I think if people haven't gone through what they needed to on land is a big thing.
Right.
Like they're not ready for that. It could be things that are totally not even related to being on the water that could be affecting you, and that could be in your mind constantly, and you got so much time and so much space to think about it that it can play on you. And the thing that may need to help you get past that is not actually on the water. It's somewhere else, but you can't actually get there. It's not like I can have a helicopter pick me up and go so I can resolve this conflict within me. And so to be able to calm yourself within that is, luckily I haven't gone through that. Have you gone through that?
Do you allow cell phones on the waka, tamaho?
No cell phones,
No
so we're
cell
not allowed
phones.
any technology. We're not allowed things that can tell us the time.
Right.
So all of your cell phones, your watches, any device that can tell the time, they're given to the captain. You have get your last 10 minutes in, or your fix or whatever on Facebook, and then you give it to the captain. Once the captain has them, he secures them in a box, and they're kept with him the whole time. So you have no connection with any technology. It's more like sinking into the environment, into the taio.
And what have you learnt about, people, organising people? What have you learned with your waka experiences?
People, I'm still learning that. I'm still learning my people skills. I've had to step into skipper. I'm also a skipper on our waka, so I have to learn how to look after the people on board as well. So that's learning how to talk to them. Like I said, I'm still learning my people skills. But because my passion for the waka and the beauty and that, I'm more like, if I look after the canoe, then the canoe will look after our people. And that's kind of my voice there, is the canoe, rather than actually directing people, if that makes sense. But I'll finish that with a quote from Uncle Hotu Roku, that says, "Tangaroa is our greatest equalizer."
Tangaroa
is our greatest equalizer.
And I'd just like to ask you another question before going back to the floor. Starting here, what did you learn about yourself? I ask you all, but what did you learn about yourself after being a navigator and what you've experienced?
You learn so much, particularly in the time of, not necessarily the time that it's happening, but the time of reflection afterwards. Because when you're out on the moana, there's so much going on, so much that you see, and are trying to deal with in real time. And then you come back to land, and it's when you're out of your comfort zone that you're learning, but you don't realize. And yes, I'm a big reflector to try and think about, how I did that well or didn't do that well, how I could have done that better. In terms of learning about myself, to be honest, I think our time out on the moana, for me, has set me up for challenges later in life. But there's some things that I couldn't have accomplished in life if it hadn't been for the struggles I dealt with or went through on the waka. Because you can't choose to run from them or escape from them. You have to face it full on and get through it, whether you like it or not. So I think an easy one is just to realize how you can't do it alone. You need your whole crew and the strengths of everyone within your crew to find that land. And that's probably a key thing, is to be able to see and recognize people's strengths and to work towards their strengths. Because, that makes all of us stronger. All the cliche stuff, but when you're out on the waka, it's so true. And so probably for me, I didn't used to be so empathetic, but it really taught me to be empathetic. Because we all go through the ups and downs and tough times, and to be vulnerable is when our friends will actually lean in and support us. Whether they reach out or not, if they can see you need support and you're vulnerable to it, they're more likely to support you. And there's such a good feeling when you are vulnerable and your friends come in and lift you up. That's so empowering. And yeah, just those little things that we might not go through on land, but on the waka, it's a real melting pot, pressure pot to deal with things.
Sure. Tēnā koe. Hinerapa, what did you learn what have you learned thus far about yourself?
I like weird things. I've never thought that I would admit that until today, but I actually enjoy all of that and like being in a crazy state. I like it for some reason. Like at the time before we left, there were only 4 navigators in Aotearoa, none were women. I like that. I like doing something that nobody else is doing. And it makes me feel good. And it makes me, feel more like me. But I never thought it was weird. But now if I put it on a grand scheme of things, no one's really doing it. And like to put yourself in a state where, so with going back to the 22-hour thing and you're not really sleeping that much, and on like day 4, you can hear conversations going on and you're dreaming about it, and your dreams are different. I like that. I remember reading the chief's notes, sorry chief, but I liked reading his diaries, which was like a one big hard book. It wasn't a 1B5, it was the 2B4, something like that, or 8. And he was talking about this duckity duck duck that was fuckity fuck fuck, and I was like, I was there and I liked it. Sorry chief, and I understood that, and that was something that I learned about myself. Yeah. Totally different to all of the deep stuff, which is very true. But even just simple was cool.
Tēnā koe me tō motu haketanga kia ora ngā koe. Bro, what about you?
I found out that I'm a little bit weird. I like the different sounds that the canoe makes. I don't know. I wouldn't say it turns me on, but it's just like, like when I'm steering and the blade's just humming in the water, it has this it's like crazy. It's like, it makes that kind of vibration sound. And I always think about these whales that were following us, and I'm like, wow, I wonder if they're talking to each other, because our waka's made of kauri, our hoi's made of kauri, and we know the relationship between kauri and whales. So I'm a little bit weird like that, where I think like, ooh, we're talking to the whales. Yeah, so that's something I probably learned about myself. I probably knew it way before the voyage, but it was out there that I realised it.
Right. You're the less weird of them all, it seems.
No, he's the weirdest.
We've got Hayley, a question up there. Oh, tēnā koe matua. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. My question is, how have you found transitioning back into normality?
Yeah.
How have you found transitioning back into normality? There's a question. Start with you, Manihira.
I actually found it really hard. So I completed my navigation in 2011. I was about 31 at that time, and to complete a goal that I'd set for my life, I thought I wouldn't be able to complete that goal until later in life because of the mātauranga and experience required. But to do that at 31, I went into a period of not knowing what next with life. And I actually spent quite a bit of time away from the waka, particularly so when we talk about the waka or select its crew, I didn't end up sailing to Rapanui on the Wakatapu trip, and just having, taking that on the chin and having to understand that, I probably wasn't right at the time, and to step back from waka life after just completing a life goal, I found normality really difficult. Finding purpose again, and finding, what next? But fortunately, probably about 3 years later, because it was a long period, about 3 years later, my oldest daughter was born, and that changed my life and gave me this massive, where I had to, I had to dedicate a lot of my time towards her, because she went through a little health journey. And so it was a nice, being able to draw on all the courage and experience that I had to now divert it back into my family. And it's nice now, like quite a few years on, to one of the things Jacko actually said to me is, at a real tough period of my life, is he said, you need to be teaching navigation. And it was the oddest time for him to tell me, but yeah, he put the pressure on me to be teaching navigation, and so it's really nice to where I've come to now to be sharing that mātauranga, because you know, what we were taught as a navigator is you can't die with the knowledge. If you die with that knowledge, you've been a complete waste of time. You have to have a tauira that can carry that knowledge on. And so that was, Jack's pressure for me to be teaching. And now there's so many amazing people in our communities that are going to make or have the potential to be some great navigators, and whether they choose to follow that journey or something else, just exposing them to this world, the tāiao, the connection with the celestial sky, how to connect with the moana. It's just so neat to see them and get enriched and grow in their own leadership for their own community. There's such a beauty on that. It's totally not even waka related, but yes, I find that that's where my path has been leaning, and given an awesome purpose of where and how to best use this mātauranga.
Yeah, I found it difficult too. I probably still do now, and it's been ages since we've been out. But I think I remember coming back home, and we were up for ages. Ever since we spotted Aotea, pretty much, we had to come in to complete customs in Auckland and then go into Tauranga. And our senses were heightened because we were so disconnected from the world that we lived on the waka, literally, and there were no thoughts elsewhere. But to go from there and then getting on land and travelling back home on a car that doesn't move the same way that a waka does. And I remember looking at the rain and was wanting to wind the window down because it felt weird. Like, it felt weird not touching the rain. Seeing the rain and not feeling the rain was hard for me, but I knew that my family would get cold. But I was so conditioned to it, we didn't leave Tauranga until about 6, 7 p.m, maybe even later, and it was going dark, and I remember looking at it, but I couldn't feel it. And just that disconnection alone was kind of the starting point of further disconnection to everything. I couldn't even speak to people properly. That was very difficult because where they were was totally not where I was. I was quite in a centered, not saying that they weren't centered, but everyone was so excited and, oh my gosh, you're back, and like, we saw the whole thing and we watched the whole thing and it was so cool, and I was just like, I didn't know what to say. I froze most of the time. And for a person who's always out and about, I found comfort in being at home, which was weird for me. And that was because I found it difficult to be able to talk. And so that was something new. Not waking up to being outside, waking up to a phone that told me the time was odd. Having conversations about Te Pāti Māori, and when that was going, I was like, what relevance? Like, are you happy? Like, what's going on? You know, and everybody else's problems, and having an opinion on problems that don't even relate to you directly or about people that you don't even know was so weird to me. I just thought, why aren't you happy? The sun is shining, you have running water, it's warm. Like, there was just so many things that I thought were way more important, but we made things that didn't make us happy important. And so I struggled a lot with that, because when we were out on the waka and it was raining and we're like happy because we've seen birds, a total contrast to elite Māori this and elite Māori that, and if you think you're an elite Māori, then, you know, and I was like, what? But I am. No, no. We just sailed back, following our tepuna pathways, using our taiao, or not using, being with them. Can I not be elite? No. Yeah, and so it was just baffling to me that,
Kia ora.
is this how I'm going to be in 5-6 months? And coming now from nearly 8 months being back home, every day I'm still waking up wishing I was out there. And the lifestyle that I live now, I need money to make me be warm, sucks. So that my family's warm, sucks. Like, we didn't, luckily for the chief, we didn't have to worry about money out there. But now that's where we're at, and that's where my time and energy goes to, rather than developing our tamariki so we can share and teach and give them that opportunity to live this way. Because there are no particular pathways. Even though navigation is always spoken about in all of these amazing symposiums, and every pōhere you go to, there'll be one mention about it, but we can't live it. It's crazy to me. We can karakia and sing about waiata, but we don't, or about stars, but we don't actually know who they are. It's crazy. And so, yeah, I'm still trying to understand that myself.
Tēnā koe. Kia tāhua. Tamaho, how do you transition back?
Well, the first sleep was great. Because Ngahiraka, she lives in Tauranga, at her kainga tuarua. I was quite fortunate that every day after we got home, I was going down to the canoe. I was going down there, having like 2 hours sleeps down there just by myself, just because I missed that. I missed being out there on the water, just like Hirirapa. I totally didn't quite understand what we had just completed. That still hadn't dropped for me, what we had actually just done. It took me like a couple of months. I was like Hirirapa too. I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk. People like same thing. Oh, I watched all your fellas stuff, millionaires. How was it? I'm like, yeah, it was cool. Yeah, you know, still didn't quite grasp or understand what we had just done. Even though we had been together for 10 years, and we knew that this opportunity was going to happen, and we knew that we were going to do it, and we'd done it, and we came home, I still didn't quite understand what we had just done.
Yeah.
And probably still to this day, still figuring that out. I was quite lucky that, like I said, the waka lives in Tauranga, so I could go back to her and keep going there, and keeping that connection. And then it was, I found it hard to adapt back to normal life, but I told myself, this is my whānau time.
Sure.
Now that I'm home, I need to spend that time with my whānau. And that's what I done, and that's how I was able to come back to normality.
And it's hard in the society to actually find that necessary reflection time to go over what just happened. Just as a quick fire question before one last question from the floor, what was the kai that you headed to straight away?
Honestly, even though we have been out on the ocean, mine was kina, kawa, scallops. We have a shop in Tauranga called Bay Packers where you can go and get all of this kai. So that was me. Kinas, scallops, crayfish, all the different kai you can't get in the Pacific motuini. I just missed our kai moana from home.
Hina lapa?
It's my mum's cooking. I didn't really care what it was, but she cooked me my favourite too, which was just simple lamb, some roast kumara. My family were there, my siblings, the world to me with my nieces and nephews. They were all there, even though I got there late, had a warm whare, and just being with them, that's the same, was whānau time, was everything.
So you started out with an island in your mind, you came back with a lamb in your mind.
Yep, pretty much. Good old lamb.
Te hea koe, bro, what was your kai?
When we used to sail, Hector had this saying that we were to eat to survive, not survive to eat. So he would always ration the crew with a minimal food, and he was always tight on the budget anyway. So there was one time, Norfolk to Aotearoa, Norfolk Island, where we ran out of food, and we had to stop having lunches. We could only have breakfast and dinner, but you couldn't tell what it was when you ate it. So, and so you'd also just eat it and then try and just hold it down, like literally. So, you know, I used to just dream of potatoes, just anything that would fill my puku. And then when we sailed to Hawaii, for whatever reason, we forgot to pick up our meat rations. So we're out in the ocean, we're sailing, and we checked the chili bin, and it was full of ice, no meat. So man, we were just starving, and you wouldn't believe how starving we had. Buckets of our almond nuts and lentils, and that's what we survived off. But we would go to McDonald's, and it would be so disappointing. You'd eat this burger that you dreamed of, but it's so disappointing when you go back to that kai after. At least fish. Fish is the most amazing thing. Yeah.
Got time for one more question from the floor up there.
Kia ora koutou. I've just got a question from the live stream. They were just wondering about the similarities or the relationship between kauri and whales.
Yeah. Tērā kōrero mo te kauri me te tohora. Who'd like to explain that a little bit more?
I have a story, actually. We were sailing so how we work with Jacko, how his kura works is that majority of the learning is in a summer sail, and you'll sail for about roughly 2 months. And we were with him for maybe 6 weeks at the time, maybe 4, and we were on our way to Chatham Islands, and, you know, no instruments, no technology to keep us distracted. So we have to talk for fun. And we were playing a game. If you were an atua, who would you be and why? And we were talking about this for ages, you know, amongst ourselves, going hard. I'll be Tawhiti and I'll do this to you, but, you know, I'll be tū mātauranga because I'm stronger than you. You know, yeah, but I'll blow you away. You know, kind of like that, going hard. And so Ngahiraka, we have whare, no windows, kawae. And Jacko was in the office, which is just at the back, so it goes like this and over water, kawae. So we were over here talking, and we're going hard, and he randomly opens up the door, maybe like 30 minutes later, or just say 30 minutes, can't really remember. But he opens it up, and with this theatrical voice, and he was like, if I was an atua, I would be tangaroa and I'd have the whale sing to me. We hadn't had a whale that whole time. Pono, no whale. Then randomly, 10 seconds later, tangaroa gives us a whale and just goes, psh, like, right, and he wouldn't have seen it because, again, whare, no matapihi, right next to him, literally, this whale. And so it was just he probably felt, I would feel so cool, like, oh, yeah, that's me, like, I'm tangaroa. Well, hina mana, but, you know, and so I don't know how he would have felt, but that to me was like the most, just our tipuna here today. Like, not even just back then. Like, I'm living it now. And to have all of our stories be like, you are one of those stories. It was a crazy, crazy experience to have. And so, thanks, Chief. I know, more to say, but yeah. So kauri and tohora, always right next to each other. It's so cool.
There is a kōrero, and people can correct me if I get this wrong. Kauri and tohora are brothers, and they both lived on the land. And one day, tohora, he wanted to go back out in the ocean to connect with their papa tangaroa. And so Kauri took off his jacket and gave it to tohora, and he went out there. And I heard this kōrero through the Kauri dieback stuff, that they'll use the oil of the tohora to try and massage into the tree to bring back that hononga, bring back that mauri from tohora to Kauri to his brother. And that was the kōrero and the connection between tohora and Kauri.
Kia ora, kia ora.
One more question from the floor before a final question for our team. Kapai.
Kia ora koutou katoa.
Tērā.
Kei te mātakitaki au ki a koe tō kōrero te hui, he tino a tāhua, he rawa wairua. And you spoke a lot about, it was such a rich kōrero. You spoke about the knowledge and, obviously you need the discipline and the skill to do what you do. But it seems like such a strong mindset that you had to have to even go in. And from your kōrero, and you've all spoken on that tonight, it seems like there's another part in it that's kind of in the makeup for your drive to see it through. I was just really appreciated hearing about the hinengaro and the wairua, that it's like the faith, you see it and sense it without seeing it. It was pretty amazing. My question was, can you give an example of when you decide to sail, can you give an example of the kaupapa, like what it's, other than, maintaining and sustaining the knowledge, but is there, it's not so much like migration or discovery kind of thing. Can you give an example of what you would plan your trip for? Is it to meet others? I don't know if that makes sense. Does it have to have a kaupapa? We're going on this trip for a purpose.
Well, that would have been good for the chief.
He's saying 2028.
Oh, 2028, Satawal. So 2028, we're going to Satawal, and that is to mihi to ngā uri o Pāpamau. So Pāpamau, Pialu, nāna ngā mātauranga I tuku ki te moana nui a kiwa. I tōna tikanga ko kore e tuku. I tōna tikanga ka tapu e rā kōrero ki a rātou. Engari I tana mōhio I te memehatanga o te hia kia ako tonu, I te nui o te tahuri o ngā uri ki te ao e noho nei tātou kaore e tahi I hia. Engari I reira e tahi atu anō I roto I te moana nui a kiwa I hia. Nā reira ko tēnei harenga, tēnei terenga, hei whakamihi atu I a rātou, me te whakanui I a rātou, kaore tana tukuhanga I maumau. Ara koera, te tahi atu anō, even saying thank you by showing up is something that we want to do. And that was another thing, similar to te reo Māori. Tēnei te mihi kaunua ki tō kaiako, ko te mihi tonu ko te kōrero. And so for us, ko te mihi tonu kia hokulea, engari kia pāpamau, ko te haere a tinana atu, me te whakahoki I e rā mihi. Maroto mai te kai, Jacko wants us to take a lot of kai because the island doesn't have as much as we do, and we can. And so even if we can give resources rather than taking something from islands, is we usually go to an island and then we need to restock there. But our hope is to go and give back instead, rather than taking from them. Also dumping our rubbish, we're going to try and find another way, so we don't have to do, we saw all of that before we get to Satawal. Ko rātou te pūtake o te whakarauratanga mai, ana kāre etu atu I tērā.
Just as a final whakaaro, hoi no kei te mohi o tātou, te iwi Māori ki nei tātou he tāngata whenua. I nā tō tātou aroa ki te whenua, I ahu mai tātou te whenua, e rā kōrero katoa. E ngore nō rā I ahu mai o tātou whainga, I hoi amā rātou te whananui e kiwa, kia taitonu mai ki tēnei kāinga. Ngā rea tikana te kōrero, he tāngata moana anō hoki. So at this Matariki, we're talking about the coming together of waka, and this is part of the kaupapa of Matariki. What is there about being tāngata moana which we could take from this time when we think about what that means? What do you feel about being tāngata moana that is something, hei hari mā tātou I roto I tāo, ka here mai nei?
Well, I think...
Yes, we are looking at you.
You know, as tangata moana, we have such that special relationship through the whakapapa to the moana that, you know, we can really lean into. So, you know, when we're out on the moana, we are at home, and we're also amongst our tupuna of the moana. And so, you know, it's not just something for us as Māori, but we speak the same language throughout the Pacific of this kaupapa. And sort of leaning into that last question, when we go from A to B or island to island, you know, the amount of respect that we receive and when we get welcomed onto these places, it's huge because we actually, our whakapapa connections are so strong and we're maintaining that culture that they also respect and are trying to maintain. So it's you know, it's one of the most beautiful things to be able to turn up somewhere, have the same, pretty much the same language in some aspects in how we relate to the moana. And you know, like when we go out on the moana and we see the tohu that we see, it's just reaffirms everything that we're doing. It's just one of the most amazing things. It's like a portal to, not necessarily to tawhito, but to, you know, what we can't always see. It's always there, but we don't always see it. And by being on the moana, there's tohus that allow us to see it, that it comes to life.
Yeah, kia ora.
Yeah.
And I suppose on land, all the tohu, it's quite cluttered on land.
Yep.
Only got tohu at sea.
Yep.
E wha, tāngata moana, he ana ngā whakaakoranga mumuri nei.
Tātou ngā teina o te moana nui a kiwa, te iwi Māori. I think we still have a lot to learn and a lot to give to te moana nui a kiwa, but one simple thing is we're actually quite racist we don't say we're Pacific Islanders. We're like, you know, Māori, PI, it's a very distinct thing, you know. Even if we just say, like, Samoan, you know, those are my brothers, a lot of people would be like, nah, they're not mine. Like, Tongan, nah, but Tahitian, yeah. Why?
Yeah.
You know, like, we're actually quite racist. And as if we don't come from them. I'm like, you know, they're our tuakana. And so that's one thing, is just how we work on the whenua as tangata moana too. And understanding that, first and foremost, I think would change us in so many ways. One thing, but two, is we are quite angry in comparison to a lot of the moana nui a kiwa. Like, when you see all of the waka working together, we're always on, we need to be here now, we need to go this way, and don't go that way, why are you going to, you know? And the Tahitians are like, you know, haere maru, they get there. And then, like, the Hawaiians are really, you know, everybody has kind of like a way of being, which is cool, and it reflects, I guess, how we are on our islands. Another part is that, what he touched on a little bit, is that, you know, everyone turns up to where waka land on the islands, except for here. You know, when we leave or when we come back, there's not as many people on the shores. But if you see all of the arrivals in Tahiti, hundreds and thousands on the moana and on shore. We have kind of forgotten how to be tangata moana in the process of being on a big whenua. And so I guess bringing those tikanga back would be beautiful too.
Tēnā koe. Kia ora. Tamaru.
Tangata moana. For me, just being tangata moana has, and being able to sail to our islands have made me realize that we are quite fortunate. We are quite fortunate to be doing this because not every island has a waka. Not every island has a navigator, you know. And they go out on these fishing boats and stuff like that, and the modern boats, and they're kind of losing that kind of touch with their ancient histories. So yeah, I look at us being tangata moana, and we're quite fortunate and quite lucky here in Aotearoa that we have about five different waka around Aotearoa. But yeah, just the realisation that we are quite fortunate and that we could do more. Like Hineta was saying, we could do more and connecting with our islanders and stuff like that. Yeah.
More gratitude, more empathy. Well, it's true, bro. I mean, the richest man in the world, Musk, said last year that empathy was the greatest threat to Western democracy. You know, crazy, crazy. Hoi no kei ngā ranga teira kei ngā hoa tēnā koutou katoa, me te ātāhu o eni whakaaro i takataka mai o koutou māngai, hei kai, mā mātou. Kanui ngā mihi ki a koe, tamahau, hine rapa, mani hera, tēnei mātou te miha tuai ki a koutou. Mō koutou, kua puere mai o koutou ngā kauhinenga rono hoki, kia tāia mātou tētahi pito māramatanga te whai nōrera kei ngā hoa tēnā koutou. Kia koutou rā, kua tai mai nei ki roto ki tēnei o ngā marae, tēnā koutou katoa, kia koutou e noho mai ana ki te kāinga, kei te mihe tūrā kia koutou. Hei whakakapi māku me pene noa te ki, ke papā te kakau hoe ki te hi papa o te waka. E hoe ki te anamata, e tere haere mai ana. Me manawa titi, me manawa kiu e. Ki mi noa nāu te kununga mai Hawaii ki he mari no uki e, he mari no uki e. Te ahu i roto, mārama i roto tēnā te pau toko mana wēnei kōrero, tēnā koutou, mānawa tia Matariki, kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Tēnā koe tata.
Tēnā koe.